Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing a video breaking down the different draft archetypes and sealed archetypes for each hero, talking about what the best cards for those heroes are, a general kind of strategy for sealed, and just getting you prepared for pre-release this upcoming weekend in just 1 or 2 days now. Before we hop into it though, I want to thank all of my patrons who have support me over on Patreon. They get additional support like regularly updated CC deck list, as well as with Limited coming out, something like this that has already been pushed out. Obviously this one is blurred since it is a Patreon reward, but something like this that is a breakdown and ranking of all the cards in the Limited set. Also, I want to ask you to subscribe if you are not subscribed already. Only about 27% of you are subscribed, so I would definitely appreciate that if you haven't, and leave a like on the video. But let's hop into it. And first, I want to look at some graphics here. These are some graphics from Malzenith, I believe, on Discord was their username. These are some really helpful graphics that let us kind of look at the Limited, how the packs look, and some breakdowns there. So for pack breakdown, this is a little more helpful for draft, but it'll be good to know for sealed as well. There are 9 commons with 1 or 2 assassin, 1 or 2 ninja, 1 or 2 ranger, and then 3 to 4 generics. So most of the cards are generic, right? Then we have common equipment. We have a hybrid card, and so all hybrid cards are either assassin ranger or assassin ninja, and this is another common. So basically another card for assassin, which is why, as you can see in the red in the top right, if there is that 4th generic, that 4th generic is usually going to replace the second assassin card because they already get the bonus card in the hybrid, right? Then there is one rare or higher, so that's where your majestic or legendary would be. And then you have a foil card that can be any rarity, and then you have 2 tokens, right? We don't really need to worry about the tokens too much, but that's kind of the breakdown of a pack. Some other great information, since we do have some things that care about these different categories here, specifically the traps really care about this. The best and most useful traps are traps that care about power being greater than its base. You can see 47% of the set increases power. Then the second most useful is traps that care about go again. About a quarter of the set can get go again. And then the least useful traps are anything that care about reactions being played or activated. Only about 5% of the set is able to have reactions. You can see at the bottom there's also some onboard ways to activate these things. But mostly the thing you want to focus on is kind of if you unless they're the only pick or the only card in your sealed pool, avoid the things that care about reactions. And for traps, focus on attack being greater than base, and then secondarily go again. And then we can look lastly here at the defense values of the set. You can see commons have about half of the commons block for 2 or less here. About another half block for, basically half block for 3, 40% of those being attacks and 10% being non-attacks. Then for the rares, most of them, 70%, block for 2 or less. And then what about 28%? About 30%, I guess, total here, blocks for 3, with 17.6% of those being attacks. So a pretty low block set. Only 30% of rares and half of your commons are going to block for 3. And a lot of those are the class cards. Generics, most of the generics only block 2. And so especially the assassin and ranger cards, most of their class cards block 3. Most of the ninja cards don't block 2. So ninja is going to be almost an entirely 2-block deck, with ranger and assassin being kind of a even split of 2 blocks and 3 blocks there. But now that we've kind of gone through each of the slides here with some quick info, just want to give a bit of a strategy for sealed. So when it comes to a sealed strategy, the kind of key thing is just the raw power of your cards. You're not going to have a ton of synergy because you didn't get to pick the cards, right? You can't like pick a bunch of isolates for dominate and then pick up a shakedown to give a dominated shakedown, right? You can't really do that as easily unless you just get lucky and have it. So you're looking just for like the best cards based on their damage, right? Like You're just looking for the best rates. So stuff like, if we go down to the generics, stuff like just red, it's way at the bottom. Just like red, looking for a scrap, red humble, red cut down to size, infectious host. Any of these like powerful cards that are just good rates, we're looking just to play like the best raw cards, right? So like almost all of our 3 blocks we want to play. So we're going to look at our class cards. You can see almost all the ranger cards here, block 3. And we're going to kind of want to focus on that, specifically on like just raw power of cards. You're not going to have a ton of synergy. So just the best 3 blocks, the best damage rates on your cards. About like, it kind of depends on the class and how expensive your cards is, but probably around 8 to 12 blues, so like 10-ish blues on average. And then, just getting just good rates on all your cards is kind of the key thing there. So mostly like blues and reds, and then yellows if you have to have them, or if they're 3 blocks, right? But let's hop right into the archetypes. So we're just going to go for each hero one at a time, starting with Uzuri here. So Uzuri has a huge text box, but basically during the reaction step, you can switch a stealth card for a 2-cost card in your hand, and you put the stealth card on the bottom of your deck. You put the stealth card onto the combat chain, replacing it, kind of making it so your opponent doesn't know what you're actually attacking with, right? You could just let the stealth card hit, or you could switch it out for a bigger attack, and then they might have underblocked and have to take some damage. So a tricky hero ability, but it really needs you to have 2-cost cards and stealth cards, right? It also, most of the 2-cost cards, I think all of the 2-cost cards, do not have go again and don't really have any way to get go again. So Uzuri is most used in a kind of 2-block, 2-attack style of deck, right? So you're going to want a lot of 3 blocks, which is great because you need stealth cards, right? So you're going to basically pick up, or in sealed at least, right? And you're going to be playing almost all of your stealth cards. They all block for 3. That's pretty good. I would probably just play all of your stealth cards if you're going Uzuri. So all your 3 blocks here. These let you just block with them, so you can block for 6 on your opponent's turn. And then you'll, on your turn, play one of the stealth cards, and then use your hero ability to play one of these 2 costs, right? Uzuri is the weaker of the 2 assassins. You would want to play her if you got a lot of really good 2-cost attacks that she can play, right? So if you got 1 or 2 shakedowns, that's obviously a huge reason to play her. Her specialization is super powerful. If you got quite a lot of red sneak attacks, even some yellow sneak attacks aren't bad. Those are pretty good. And then if we go down to the generics here, some red humbles are pretty good to play, red cut down to size, and red destructive deliberation. So if we're getting some of these, obviously if we got some death touches as well, those are nice, but these are still pretty fine in Arakni, so those aren't really the reason to play it. But if you're getting a ton of stealth cards, and especially if those stealth cards aren't red, because the reds are a little better in Arakni, if you're getting a lot of like blue and yellow stealth cards, and then a lot of good 2-cost attacks, that would probably be a reason to play Uzuri, right? Then you can block for 6, and then on your turn, just play a stealth card, switch it out with Uzuri for the 2-cost, and that's a pretty good combo. If you're getting a lot of isolates, that's also pretty nice because it basically gives that attack dominate, right? You're going to just play any of these. They can only block with 1 card from hand, and then you can switch it out. So, if they're just blocking for 3, you switch it out for the sneak attack, and now you're hitting them for 4 damage that they really couldn't avoid. So those are kind of the key things I'm looking for. Lots of stealth cards, maybe lots of blue and yellow stealth cards, a lot of isolates, and then a lot of really good red 2-cost attacks. Those would be the main reasons to play Uzuri here, right? And like I said, the strategy is kind of block with 2 cards, and then use your stealth card with your hero ability to play your 2-cost attack. But let's now look at Arakni. Arakni Solitary Confinement is a lot more simple. Does have 1 less health because it's a stronger hero ability and limited, only 19 health, but it just says your first attack with stealth each turn has go again, right? And Arakni can be super flexible because of that. You're once again playing all of your stealth cards here, and you can just block with them for 3 if you need to. They all block 3, or you can just play 2 stealth cards, right? The best one is definitely Infect, because this basically deals 5 damage. It's 3 damage, and if it hits, they get a Blood Rot Pox, which will do 2 at the end of their turn. So you're getting 5 damage out of it, and then you can give it go again. And then you can follow up with anything you want, right? You can follow up with any of the good generics, like any of these 2 for 6s we talked about earlier. You can just go a stealth card into Humble, for example. You can follow up with a stealth card and then dagger, and then like a 1-cost attack, like looking for a scrap or a spring load. So you could go, dagger, stealth card, spring load, which is then a 1 for 5. So that's another play you can do off of a kind of 3-card hand there. Very, very flexible because you give all of those stealth cards go again. You are ideally looking for quite a bit of red stealth cards because those are going to be the best rate for go again. And because a lot of stuff only blocks 2 in this set, 3 is still a fine number here. So really looking for quite a lot of these red stealth cards. And then Arakni uses the reactions best, right? So we've got all of these razor edges. All of these are good to play. They all block 3 and they're all pretty solid. So I would play any of the razor's edge you get. And then any of these spikes are amazing. Spike with Blood Rot is a 1 for 5. All of these are reactions you use on your stealth cards, but they're not great in Uzuri because she switches that stealth card away and has no way to actually use these on her stealth cards if she's wanting to switch for her 2 costs, right? So they're, for the most part, kind of useless in Uzuri, but really, really powerful in Arakni. And he's going to be kind of your default assassin. If you have a big amount of assassin cards in your pre-release pool, you're probably going to be playing Arakni unless you have like specifically a good amount of red 2 costs and then like some isolates, right? Like that's when you'd be leaning more towards Uzuri. You got a few shakedowns, maybe 1 or 2 shakedowns. That could be a reason, but for the most part, you're probably going to be playing Arakni if you got a lot of good assassin cards. Okay, let's move into Katsu here. So Katsu is our first ninja, cares a lot about combo. First time an attack action hits, you discard a 0 cost, and then you can search your deck for a card with combo, banish it, and you can play it that turn, right? So he makes it easier for your combo lines to happen by getting rid of 0 costs from your hands and then finding a combo card. Combo is a mechanic where you have to have specific cards in a row that care about the previous card played with its name to make those things happen, right? So Katsu is the weaker of the 2 ninjas in limited. You're only going to play him if you get like really good specific combo cards. The main line being the Bonds of Ancestry line. So if you get probably 2 red Gust Waves and then 2 red Bonds of Ancestry, then he's probably good enough to play. This line's really powerful. You need to have a Surging Strike, so you want 1 or 2 red Surging Strikes first. This is 2 for 5 go again. Then Gust Wave, if you have a Surging Strike before it, it's a 0 for 5 go again. And then Bonds of Ancestry, if you have Gust Wave before it, is a 0 for 4 go again. That basically lets you draw a card. So really, really powerful, super strong. Probably the strongest thing you can do in the sealed format. But you want to have at least like 1 or 2 of each of those. Probably 2 at least of each, right? 2 Surging Strikes, 2 Gust Waves, and 2 Bonds of Ancestry. You do have cards like Be Like Water that you can, if it hits, change its name to Surging Strike, which makes it a bit easier. And then you can maybe get Mask of Many Faces that lets you use a resource to change the name of one of your cards, making it easier to do the combo line. But generally, he's just going to be weaker if he doesn't have all these combo stuff, because he kind of doesn't have a hero ability if you don't have a lot of good combo lines to go off of. So I would check and see if you have a few Bonds of Ancestry, Descendant, Gust Wave, and Surging Strike. You want to have those cards. If you have quite a few of each, he's probably the better ninja to play, especially if you have those and Dishonor, right? Because Dishonor is like a crazy card that if you have all of those before it, the Surging Strike, the Gust Wave, and the Bonds of Ancestry, if it hits, the opponent loses their hero ability for the whole game. So really, really powerful. It is a Majestic, so not going to be that common to see, but pretty powerful there. So if you get like a pretty powerful ninja pool with all those combos, then I would play Katsu. But the default ninja is going to be Benji here, right? Benji does have quite a bit less health, only 17 health, but has probably the strongest text box in the entire format. The first one is actually the weaker of the 2 abilities. It says your attack action cards with 2 or less power can't be defended by cards from hand. This is pretty strong, but it means you're playing some weaker cards, right? You really want to be playing stuff with more than 2 power, but it's especially good at the end of the game when you just need to do 1 or 2 more damage to your opponent to finish them off, and they keep blocking everything you throw at them. You can throw an unblockable attack, and then you have a pretty good chance of finishing them off there. So in the early game, you want to be doing powerful cards, doing 3, 4, 5 damage on each card, but at the end of the game, when you're through all your powerful cards and your deck's down to like 10 cards, this can help you finish it with one of those weaker ones. So still super strong, but the second ability here is what makes it really powerful. It says the first time an attack action card you control hits each turn, your next attack gains +1 power. So this is just a free 1 damage every turn. Now, the first 3 times you activate this, you're basically evening out your life, right? Like the first 3 times it happens, you're getting 18, 19, 20 life, because that's why they put him down to 17 life, because he's just getting free damage out of nowhere. So the first 3 times, you need to activate it at least 3 times for him to be like equal to any of the 20 life heroes. But after that, it's just better. The 4th activation, it's like he was at 21 life. The 5th activation, it's like he was at 22 life, because you're getting this free advantage over the other heroes with just free damage every turn, right? So really powerful ability. It's a little bit like Ira, who's one of the strongest young ninja heroes, or young heroes period. So she's really strong, and she's in Blitz a lot, and this is kind of that ability. He definitely has the strongest hero ability in the format, but you do like have to get it to work, because he starts at 3 less life than most of the other heroes, right? Riptide and Arakni both start at 19, and then Katsu, Uzuri, and Azalea all start at 20. So he's quite a bit lower on life, but it's because he has this really, really strong hero ability that, if you can get it to work, is great. And then looking at his cards, he can basically play anything. You just play the strongest cards you get. He's not going to care much about these combo cards, because he's going to have trouble making them line up. He's going to care more about just strong stuff. Just 0 for 3 go again on that, 0 for 3 go again on that, 1 for 4 go again on that. Just all these strong cards. And then you do want to see some of these cards that have on hits and are unblockable, right? So Recoil, it's a great card because it blocks for 3 and is a yellow. And it says, if head jab was the last attack this combat chain, it has, when this hits, they put a card from their hand on the top of their deck, right? But it's only 2 power, so with his hero ability, they can't block it. So if you played head jab before and then recoil, they just have to lose a card and put it on top. So he does have some powerful synergies like that, but really, you're just trying to play the best cards. 0 for 3 go again, 1 for 3 go again, 0 for 3 go again, 1 for 4 go again. All of these powerful cards, you're just trying to line these up and have the strongest possible turns. Just basically a deck of, like, ideally, like 20 to 22 red cards, and then 8 to 10 blue cards. And mostly, if you can, get all those blue cards to be 0 cost, because their weapon, the Kodachis, only get go again if you have a 0 cost in your pitch zone. But that's kind of the goal here, just a lot of really strong attacks. He's just a full-on aggro hero. You kind of have to be aggro because you have so much less life than your opponent. You can't be blocking. You don't really want to block. You just want to be throwing all of your damage at your opponent. You are the highest damage hero in the format, and so that's kind of his goal. Let's move on to Azalea here. Azalea is the weaker of the 2 Rangers. She has the hero ability that's a little hard to pull off, where she puts a card from her arsenal on the bottom of her deck, and then you put the top card of your deck into your arsenal. If it's an arrow, it gains Dominate. But you don't usually know what's on the top of your deck, so sometimes this is just going to completely blank and not be an arrow. It's a little inconsistent, and there's not a ton of ways to guarantee that it is an arrow on top in this format, so a little bit of a weaker hero ability. Riptide, who's the ranger we're going to look at next, is more of the default ranger. You can kind of tell I said there was a default kind of class for, or an easier at least one to make happen, right? There's Arakni, Benji, and then Riptide are kind of the easier to make happen of each class, but Azalea is still powerful. With her, you're looking to find some ways to mess with the top of your deck so you can set up an arrow. So Spire Snipings are super good. You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put them back in any order when it's put it face up into your arsenal. And then you can switch that Spire Sniping with an arrow you found on top to give it Dominate. The other ways to mess around with the top are Wayfinder's Crest. When you block with this, you can look at the top card of your deck, kind of see what's going on there. And then I think the only other great way, at least I can think of right now, is the Seeker's generic equipment. This lets you opt 1. So look at the top card and put it on the top or bottom, just for 1 resource on your turn. There's probably a few ways in generic. There's like Seek Horizon that lets you put a card on top of your deck, but then you're going down a card, so it's not amazing. It's just fine. But she's not the most consistent. You're going to miss sometimes on your hero ability, and then she basically has no hero ability, right? So not great there, but if you're getting a ton of stuff that opts, so if you're getting Wayfinder's Crest, you have 3 or 4 different versions of the Spire Sniping here. then maybe you have enough ways to manipulate the top of your deck where it's worth it. And then at that point, you just want a ton of cards that increase your arrow's power. So all of these laces increase it by 3. These fletch with the tails increase by different amounts, 2, 3, or 4. Melting point increases by 4. And then we've got some stuff down here in common and generic, like Come to Fight, that increases power of the next attack, and Scout the Periphery. This is another way to look at the top. So those are all different ways to increase power there. And that's kind of what you want to do. You just want to dominate an arrow and increase its power a ton so that your opponent just dies and they can't block it because it has dominate, right? So that's kind of the goal. She's a little harder to pull off for sure than Riptide, but has some potential to be super strong if you get all of these ways to look at the top of your deck, mess around with it, and then you can pump up a huge dominated arrow that your opponent can only block with 1 card. So that's kind of what she's looking to do, but a little less consistent than Riptide here. Riptide does start at 19 life instead of 20, but that's because, kind of like Benji, he has some free damage, right? So he says, when a trap you control triggers, deal 1 damage to the attacking hero. So you only need to get this to trigger once to kind of equal him up to 20 life, because you get that 1 free damage. Then every damage after that is basically free damage. There's basically no way for them to easily prevent this. I think the only way really is like the this equipment down here that just says prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt. But outside of the Seeker's common equipment, I don't think there's really any way to prevent it. So it's pretty much free damage. His other ability does say whenever you play a card from hand, you may put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. So that's pretty nice as well, giving you a free way to put stuff in your arsenal. There's quite a lot of cards in this format that say only from arsenal or attack from arsenal. For example, we've got these Death Touch cards down here. They can't be played from hand, meaning they can basically only be played from arsenal. Virulent Touch can't be played from hand as well. And then stuff like Scout the Periphery, it gives the next attack from your arsenal +3. So quite a lot of things that care about arsenal, and he lets you easily put stuff into there on your own turn without having to wait until the arsenal step. And then he also cares about traps, right? You've got all of his legendary traps here. They're all Majestics, but they're all really good. We've got his rare traps here. These are pretty good as well. All the traps block for 3, so that's already pretty good. And then if you can get them to trigger, which means you have to fulfill their condition, right? It has to, for example, this one has to defend an attack with power greater than its base. But if it is defending an attack with power greater than its base and it triggers, you get 1 free damage from Riptide directly to your opponent. Super good. And it's a great way to close out the game, because the problem with Rangers is they don't have a weapon that deals damage. They just have a bow. So if your opponent decides to just fully block you out, they have the potential just to block all of your cards, all of your arrows, and then eventually you run out of cards. You're at 0 cards left in deck, and you don't have any way to, or maybe you have 1 or 2 cards left, but you just have no way to pitch those to a weapon to keep going. While Ninja has these Kodachis they can deal 1 damage with, and then Assassin has the Spider's Bite that they can continuously attack with. So you can get decked the easiest. You can run out of deck the easiest on Ranger here, but you do have a lot of defensive power with your 3 blocks. Everything's a 3 block. And you have a few ways to close out the game, right? Especially on Riptide, that free 1 damage from these traps. And then we do have the traps down here as well. Right here, these 3 that are hybrid Assassin and Ranger. So those are great as well. That's kind of a summary of all of the classes, all of the heroes, what cards work best with them, a bit of a description of their hero ability. I just want to give a shout out to a few of the better cards. So the best card, probably the best rare in the entire sealed format, is going to be, and in a draft, is Death Touch. Death Touch is amazing. Basically all the colors, but obviously the red is the best. It's basically 1 resource for 8 damage, because if it hits, they get a Blood Rot Pox. That's really great. So this card's amazing. If you're getting 2, 3, or 4, anything, I mean, if you get 4, you're just doing amazing. Then you're definitely going to want to play either Assassin or Ranger. Really, really good with both of those. The equipment, all the equipment that blocks 1 is pretty good. Most of it's the hybrid. So we've got the Assassin Ranger equipment here for the head and the arms. And then we've got the Assassin Ninja equipment here for the head and the arms as well. They all block 1. They have other abilities too, that's pretty nice, but the 1 block is basically free health, right? Because it starts on the board. We do have this hybrid stuff as well. All of this is okay. Some of the stuff's better than others. Hurl is pretty nice for assassin or ninja. It's also some unblockable free damage to close out the game. Short and sharp is kind of best with Benji here. And then bleed out is a little bit better with ninja. But that's kind of a summary of the format. Let me know what you think, what heroes you think you're going to be playing, or you're most excited to play. And yeah, if you are seeing this after, or if you want to come back after your pre-release, let me know how you did. I'd love to hear about it. I love to give any tips or just see any comments. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time.